how Yelp is teaming up with users to combat racism. We have that story. And one North Texas local experienced history in the making.
An update on Cowboys Dak Prescott and what this could mean for the rest of the season.
Broadcasting live from the University of North Texas, this is ntTV Nightly News.
Thanks for joining us on ntTV Nightly News. I'm Andrew Fancher.
And I'm Alyssa Weems. It's a Senate hearing unlike any other. Judge Amy Coney Barrett began her first day of Supreme Court hearings, but what makes this different is the timing. The recent death of Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg has opened up a seat on the High Court, and the Trump administration is pushing to confirm Barrett before the November 3rd elections. Steve Nance has more from Washington.
The committee vote may be all but certain.
Unless something really dramatic happens, all Republicans will vote yes and all Democrats will vote no.
But the political stakes on Capitol Hill this week couldn't be greater as senators hear directly from President Donald Trump's Supreme Court pick, Judge Amy Coney Barrett.
If confirmed, it would be the honor of a lifetime to serve alongside the Chief Justice and 7 Associate Justices.
The controversial nomination hearing kicking off just 22 days before the election and in the midst of a coronavirus pandemic. Democrats have argued unsuccessfully the committee should wait.
I believe we should not be moving forward on this nomination.
But Republicans have pressed on, and now Barrett's in the spotlight, with Democrats focusing on the president's efforts to end Obamacare.
He wants his Supreme Court and this nominee to join him in eliminating the Affordable Care Act.
And Republicans touting Barrett's qualifications.
Judge Barrett brings impeccable credentials, a judicial temperament, and a faithfulness to the law.
Tuesday and Wednesday, we will see questions directly from the senators in what will likely include some of the most contentious moments.
I believe Americans of all backgrounds deserve an independent Supreme Court that interprets our Constitution and laws as they are written. And I believe I can serve my country by playing that role.
In Washington, I'm Steve Nannis.
Well, Andrew, it's been pretty hot outside today.
That's right, Alyssa. I could definitely use some cooler temperatures this afternoon. Let's check in with Blake and see how we're looking outside. Blake?
Yeah, Andrew, as you can see right now, it's pretty sunny outside with a nice temperature of 80 degrees, and there's a nice strong breeze of 13 miles per hour. Now we're going to get to tonight, and it's going to cool down a lot by 20 degrees. The breeze will remain, however. But enough about today. Let's go to tomorrow. It is going to get a little bit warmer at 82 degrees, but there's going to be a nice gentle breeze of 7 miles per hour. That's all I have for now. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Blake. As elections are coming up, several states, including Texas, are getting a head start at the polls. ntTV's Hannah Gonzalez is live at one of the polling stations with more.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm at the UNT Gateway Center, one of the many locations where Denton residents are able to vote. Early voting starts tomorrow, October 13th, for the November 3rd election. Voting hours are from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. on Sundays. The UNT Gateway Center is one of the many participating locations where early voting will take place. But don't worry, you have plenty of time to head out to the polls. Early voting officially ends on October 30th. For more information, visit votedenton.com. I'm Hannah Gonzalez. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Hannah. And if you plan to do voting this election, you might want to be a little more careful this time. The FBI is sending out a warning to voters that scammers and cybercriminals might be targeting voters. CNN reporter Mandy Gaither has more.
Just when you think this election couldn't get more chaotic, the FBI and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency are warning about spoofed URLs and email domains that could pose a risk to voters. Officials say scammers are using fraudulent websites and email addresses, posing as legitimate election resources that could easily dupe victims into giving away their personal information or infect their computer with malware. To avoid becoming a victim, the FBI says to carefully check the spelling of web addresses businesses' websites and email addresses. Oftentimes, scammers use a .com instead of a .gov or misspell words. Seek out information from trustworthy sources. Make sure your computer and antivirus software are updated. Remove unneeded software apps. Use a strong two-factor authentication. Don't open emails or attachments from someone you don't know, and never give out any personal information via email. Many emails requesting that will appear to be legitimate. For Consumer Watch, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Microsoft has taken down a massive hacking operation, one that could have possibly impacted the presidential election. TrickBot is a malware hacking network that has been used by numerous hackers to perform cyber attacks. Microsoft explained that they had received a federal court order to disable the IP addresses associated with the TrickBot servers. Working with telecom providers from all around the world, they successfully shut it down, but it could happen again. The efforts to take down this event has opened a new legal approach to take down future networks.
Twitter has flagged another one of President Donald Trump's tweets. On Sunday, Trump tweeted that he is immune to the coronavirus. However, there is no medical evidence to prove this statement is true. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention tells COVID-19 survivors to not consider themselves immune. Twitter placed this message on the tweet, stating it violates its ban on spreading misleading and potentially harmful information about the pandemic. But Twitter isn't the only online platform calling out unusual behavior. Yelp is showing their firm stance against racism by posting warning messages about certain businesses. A large banner will pop up that says business accused of racist behavior with the resounding evidence attached. Reports on business engaging in racist behavior increased earlier this year when protests began after the police killing of George Floyd. Last year, Yelp temporarily disbanded reviews on roughly 600 pages due to the evident fake page reviews.
When we return, our sports reporter Jennifer tells us why she's live at the Star.
And the race towards the COVID-19 vaccine, who will be the first after it arrives? More after these messages. It's been a tough 24 hours for Cowboys fans. A very serious injury to a top athlete was very difficult to see. ntTV sports anchor Jennifer Holbrook is live at the Star in Frisco with more. Jen?
Thanks, Alyssa. There's a big question mark on for Cowboys Nation tonight. Not who will replace injured Dak Prescott, but what the future is for Dak and the team. Dak suffered a compound fracture and dislocation of his right ankle against the Giants yesterday, effectively ending his 2020 season. After being carted off the field and taken to the hospital, the Cowboys brought in noted foot and ankle doctor Gene Curry to perform the immediate surgery on the ankle to prevent infection. The surgery was successful and Dak left the hospital earlier today. The Prescott was playing under a one-year franchise tender after failing to come to a long-term deal with the Cowboys over the summer, which raises difficult questions about his future in Dallas. But UNT's Dr. Bob Here feels confident that for now, the Jones family focus is firmly on Dak's health.
Well, the Jones family is very close with their players. Sometimes at the fault, where we like to think of Jerry Sr. and Jr. as hard businessmen, but they're really very loyal to their fans. So I'm sure that today the one thing on their mind was making sure Dak was okay, that the family was okay, that the hospital's taking care of him. I honestly do not think they engaged today too much in the conversation. How do we move forward? They got a great backup quarterback signed who, as you saw on the last drive, can actually allow this team to win a couple games this year. But yeah, I mean, the question on how do we move forward with Dak and how is this going to affect his contract will come up sooner rather than later.
After yesterday's game, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones released a statement praising Dak's toughness and determination and says that he has no doubt that he will return to the position of leadership and purpose that he brings to the Cowboys. Dak was replaced in yesterday's game by backup Andy Dalton. I will have more on the game and Dalton's performance later tonight. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Jennifer. It's not very often that we experience history in the making. And for one North Texas resident, she witnessed the turning point of international conflict while studying abroad in Hong Kong. In the fall of 2019, 2 months into a growing anti-government movement, Nancy Pham commenced a semester abroad at the Chinese University of Hong Kong.
I was scheduled to be in Hong Kong for 3 to 3.5 months, depending on finals. I only was able to stay 2.5 months before the protests on campus got too violent.
Shortly after Pham's arrival, the Hong Kong police exchanged their rubber bullets for lead and clashed with protesters.
I wasn't scared of the protesters themselves. I was just scared of where the protests could go, and I also didn't want my views to stop them from a problem that didn't affect me.
For a better understanding on the political unrest in Hong Kong, I reached out to Dr. David Mason, a Regents Professor of Political Science here at UNT.
What citizens of Hong Kong fear is that now, instead of Hong Kong having its own separate judicial system, their citizens will be subject to being extradited to the mainland to be tried in mainland Chinese courts.
On November 11th, protesters commandeered the Chinese University of Hong Kong. For 3 days, riot-ready police besieged the campus.
This whole week, classes were canceled because faculty couldn't get on and there was just too much unrest. The protesters took over my campus, and seeing that was like, wow, this is important.
Within the month, Nancy Pham was back in the States. At Current, the people of Hong Kong are still protesting China's intrusions on their autonomy. Today, in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, UNT announced the university is partnering with the UNT Native American Student Association and other groups on a permanent land acknowledgement installation that will honor the histories and present-day contributions of Natives and Indigenous people.
Besides my brother, only person who openly identified as Native and was only person of my ethnic identity where I was. When I came to college, I finally found that community. We have each other's backs. We're honestly like a family at this point.
Thunderhawk's bloodline originates from the Northern Cheyenne and Lakota tribes. NASA is open to Native American, American Indian, Indigenous identifying, and friends or allies. Students can expect an announcement regarding the future of the organization on Thursday. To find out more information, you can go to untnasa.com. Well, Alyssa, for it being October, it sure doesn't feel like Halloween.
Not at all. I'm getting pretty tired of these 90-degree days and would love some cooler temperatures. Blake, how's the forecast looking?
Forecast. Forecast is looking pretty nice, but before we get to that, let's get to our local map over here, and you can see it's pretty much the same old, same old. You can see some low 80s and high 70s, so enough of the local map. Let's get to the state map for a bigger perspective, and it is getting pretty hot in the south, with Houston getting to 90 degrees and Austin getting to 88. In the north, it is a little better with Oklahoma City being 76, but let's do our week forecast, and as you can see, it is going to be getting a bit cooler throughout the week, with Thursday is 74 and a low of 49. The lows are getting extremely low in the low 50s and the high 50s respectively. That's all I have for you now. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Blake. While we are still fighting the COVID virus on a global scale, efforts to create a vaccine are on a fast track. Many are still unsure about that vaccine will be available, but it isn't too early to think about its distribution in the market once it arrives. Asmar Khan has more in tonight's Your Health.
Several countries are currently working on their own COVID-19 vaccine. But when a vaccine is approved, the question is who gets it first, especially when there is not enough for everyone. A vaccine advisory group to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention will be having a meeting to discuss who gets the vaccine first when it's approved. It's still not confirmed when the first COVID-19 vaccine will be in the market, but there are expected to be shortages once it's approved. Dr. Julia Heck is an Associate Dean for Research at the University of North Texas. She is an epidemiologist and highlights the groups that are expected to get the vaccine first.
Of course, they're going to start with people who are most likely to be exposed and the most vulnerable people. So that's going to be healthcare workers who have a really good likelihood of exposure. Also, people who work in nursing homes. And then it's not necessarily just physicians and nurses. It could be other people who work at the hospital, like janitors, who have a pretty high likelihood of exposure as well.
Dr. Heck expects the vaccines to be in the market by the summer of 2021, but admits that it might be long after that an average American would be able to get vaccinated because of expected shortages of the vaccine and its complex procedure.
There's something called the cold chain with vaccines, where vaccines have to be kept at a certain temperature until they reach the person who's vaccinated. So there's just many sort of moving parts.
For an average American like Melissa Osornio, this pandemic has been a struggle, but she understands not being a priority for the vaccine once it's approved.
Personally, I feel okay with waiting over a year to get it as an average American, but that's only because I feel like we should prioritize like this essential workers and stuff like that.
In a framework released by the National Academy of Science earlier this month, it is believed that all the Americans who did not receive the vaccine initially will be covered in Phase 4 of the vaccination process. The Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices has yet to vote on this topic. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Asmar. When we come back, the new Apple iPhone will be released next week. We'll have an update.
And we are out at the Star in Frisco with more on the Cowboys' win yesterday. But at what cost? Stay with us.
During this pandemic, people have started to become more conscious of how frequently they clean everyday objects.
We are also wondering if we are cleaning these everyday objects correctly. Our anchor, Blaine Tatum, has the answer for how to sanitize everyone's most used item. Blaine?
Thanks, Alyssa and Andy. You're right. Sanitization is a big thing on people's minds right now. There's lots of things we use every day, but one thing we use more than the others is our phones. Many people simply wipe down their phone and think that will get rid of all the germs, but it's not that simple. People use their phones quite a bit and they accumulate a lot of bacteria. I know I'm guilty of being on mine a little too much. As amazing as these things are, they can't clean themselves yet, so I'm going to show you an easy way. First, turn off your phone and remove your case. After you're done with that, go ahead and grab a soft towel to remove all lint and dust. After that, get your towel, get your isopropyl alcohol, spray the towel, and then wipe down your phone. Make sure to avoid any ports and openings. Next, set your phone down off to the side to air dry, and while your phone is drying, it's time to clean your case. Cases made of hard materials can be cleaned with warm water and hand soap. Leather cases should be cleaned with a special cleaner. Now dry off your case, and once you're finished with that, go ahead and put your phone back in and you're ready to get back to whatever you were doing. 23% of people have never cleaned their phone. Now, you don't have an excuse to be one of them. Back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Blaine. Apple is expected to introduce a new line of iPhones after delays due to the pandemic. Several reports indicate that Apple introduced 4 new iPhones ranging in sizes up to 6.7 inches, which would be its largest size to date. Apple held a virtual event hinting that the new iPhone models will take advantage of the 5G wireless networks. This launch will mean that Apple will be joining the 5G revolution even though the high-speed networks are still under development. Apple has yet to release the prices of these new models. Those will be unveiled Tuesday.
Well, it certainly was an interesting week in the sports world and locally with the Dallas Cowboy quarterback injury and more with the UNT football game this weekend. Jennifer, tell us more.
Thanks, you guys. Yeah, this weekend really truly was not amazing for the Mean Green, but I do have some good basketball news regarding the finals coming up after the break. Despite Dak Prescott leaving with that devastating injury, the Dallas Cowboys managed to overcome the New York Giants. Backup Andy Dalton came in late in the fourth quarter, helping the Cowboys to victory. This included a 38-yard pass to Michael Gallup to set up the game-winning field goal. Despite their 2-3 record, this win puts the Cowboys on top of the NFC East after the Eagles lost to the Steelers. With Dalton now the new starter, the Cowboys will host the Arizona Cardinals this Monday night. The Mean Green failed again this weekend to gain their first Conference USA win against Charlotte. UNT has been having trouble getting into the red zone early this season, and Saturday's game was unfortunately no different. Despite the team's struggles, senior wide receiver Jalen Darden had a career game with 244 yards and 3 touchdowns. This was his 4th 3-touchdown game of his career. The Mean Green will take on 1-4 Middle Tennessee on the road this Saturday. For some good news in basketball, last night the Los Angeles Lakers finally won the NBA Finals in 6 against the Miami Heat. This was an all-around historic night for the Lakers, making this their 17th franchise title. This also was the 4th title and 4th Finals MVP for LeBron James. He led the Lakers last night with a 28-point triple-double. In regards to the 2021 season, we have not gotten an official start date from the NBA yet, only that it probably won't start until after the new year. That is all I have here for sports, so back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Jennifer. So here's a question for you. Who wants to take a trip to nowhere? It seems quite a few people. Tourist companies are coming up with interesting ways to cruise and flight tickets while keeping people as safe as possible. Overseas, Singapore opened a cruise that doesn't visit any ports. Australia opened an adventure flight in Sydney that circles the country. But back in the States, one local airline is finding places to go. Southwest Airlines is expanding operations, announcing today that it will open in Houston's Bush Airport and Intercolonial Chicago's. This service is expected to take off next year. Thanks for watching ntTV Nightly News.
Join us again tomorrow night at 6 here on North Texas Television.